well, we got a special interview this morning, and let me just remind you, obviously we've done countless number of interviews now in our time together at ABF, but these interviews are always special to me, one, and I hope special and edifying to you because we get a chance to see just how God continues to work in the lives of mere human beings, right? Sometimes we can, whether it be, bring an outsider, bring somebody from CBI that's a professor that's doing a weekend intensive, sometimes we can think, well, God's given them a special gift to do what they do. But the interviews, I always want to try to bring them back full circle to remember, look, we're all saved by grace. We're all only able to be used by grace, and it's all God's doing, and He needs willing hearts to be able to continue to do His work that He's laid out to do in this world. And He's going to find that, no doubt about it. And while there's nothing special about anybody I interview, I guess that's not a good way to start it up, but, nothing special about myself. I want us all to remember that God has gifted every one of us for His good purpose, right? And for good works that He has already laid out for us, what Ephesians 2:10 tells us. And I want it to be an encouragement to see, wow, God can use me. Maybe I don't have the same platform or microphone and all that, but God's going to use me. If I'm faithful, He's going to use me in a great way for His glory. And it's always exciting to me when we're able to do it even more so with people that are here at our church. And we haven't had that in a while aside from the pastors that we've had here. But it's encouraging because you get to see people that you rub shoulders with every weekend. But we get a chance to hear how God is using them greatly. And God's using Jay Rubin, our guest here this morning, in a great way. And I've seen God use him in many different ministries that he and I have been a part of, but I think God has really shown him where He's going to use him specifically for the rest of his life. And it's unique because typically you say, hey, I want to use my giftings where I think I relate to them the most. And this is opposite here, but God is doing a great work here. So all of that long introduction to say we got a special interview, and I want you to be excited as I am because I've been thrilled to be able to do this for a long time, and now we have it here. But let's give Mr. Jay Rubin a warm ABF welcome. And I was just sharing with Jay that this is a special day because this is the third ministry that I've overseen that you are now a part of. And it actually started, you and I spent a lot of time in men's ministry together when you were small group leader with me there, and even we were small group leaders together. But it's inactive of all ministries. We had a good run when active, and Chris Francisco was there too. You remember that? We used to go walking down on the beach and evangelizing.
Was that with our masks?
With our that mask time. Yeah, you remember that?
I remember that.
Yeah, so we had to be outside, but and funny because Chris Francisco, as you know, he's a runner, and so he and I used to go down to what was that? Strand,
right?
And Chris would say, "All right, I'm gonna go run," and I'd say, "Well, I'm gonna hang out with Jay. I'll walk." So Jay was my excuse, but we'd have great conversations walking on the beach and evangelizing. It was good. But enough of me talking. I want to get to you. So, Jay, I guess first tell us how long you've been at Compass, what ministries you currently serve in, and then, we'll get some more detail of that. But I'd love to start with your testimony right when you get done with talking about where you're at in Compass.
So actually, Compass is the first church and only church I've ever attended. And I started about 15 years ago. And I'm just a volunteer kind of guy. So as soon as I started, I volunteered to work in the printing department or something. I used to fold and cut the handouts for the weekend services. And I did that for a while, and then became a gatekeeper just because I'd like to do that kind of thing. And then for a while, I was just kind of doing those things, and one day I looked at one of the handout sheets, and it said that they needed volunteers for kids ministry, and I think it was for kids with special needs. And I thought, well, I don't know how to do that, but I'll volunteer anyway. So I went ahead and signed up and did all the background info, and then nothing happened. And it was like weeks later or something, and I thought, well, gee, maybe God doesn't want me to do this. So I did one of these silly things. I said, as I was coming out of the 9 o'clock service, I said in my head to God, God, if you really want me to do this kids ministry thing, I think that it was Susan Grover that was head at that time of the kids ministry. I said, I think when I go into building 140, that Susan Grover should be in the lobby. And if she's in the lobby, then I know you want me to be in kids ministry. So I walked over to building 140, and Susan Grover opened the door to let me into the lobby. Okay, got that message loud and clear. And she said to me, well, you know, is that what you want to do is for kids with special needs? I go, no, I want to do anything that I can in kids ministry just because I think that's what I'm supposed to do. And so she put me with Clay Wildman. You remember Clay? He was the only other person I knew that wore a jacket at that time.
Full
I used to wear a
yeah.
suit all the time. Anyway, she put me with Clay, and I started off in the 4th grade, and that's how I started to learn how little I knew, and it was just a great experience, and that's what got me started. And then, so I pretty much that, and I led in men's Bible study. Originally, I used to do on Tuesday nights, and then it was getting difficult to leave my wife at home alone at night, so I got moved to the Tuesday mornings because she was still sleeping in at that time. And so that worked out, and did that for several years. And I think I finally stopped about a year ago because I just had too many different things I was trying to do, and I guess I can't do it as quickly as I used to. So
I thought it was because the leader was not good. That was how I took it. No, I'm just kidding. That was a joke about myself. That went over some of your heads. All right. Well, yeah, and he has you exactly where he wants you. And,
I believe so.
Yeah, and we're going to get to that here in a little bit. But, yeah, tell us your testimony. So, obviously, you've been here at Compass. This is your only church, so that kind of leans into your testimony a little bit. Tell us about, growing up and how you got saved.
Yeah, so I was born in Brooklyn, New York. If you couldn't tell from my accent, I haven't quite lost it. I've only been here since 1966, I think, so. Anyway, born a Jew, and then so watch these kids. When I was around 11 years old, I'd see these kids going down the street. I asked my mom, well, where are they going? They got books in their hand. She said, they're going to Hebrew school. And I said, I want to do that. And so she signed me up for Hebrew school, and I went for several years, and I actually learned how to read Hebrew. And I was really good at reading it, couldn't understand what any of the words meant, but I could read it. And so then what happens is when you're a Jew, at 13, you're supposed to have a bar mitzvah, which most people don't realize this, but when Jews get together to pray, they can't just have 2 or 3 people. They have to have like a minimum, it's called a minyan, minimum of 10. And I guess if you went to Israel and you're walking down the street, sometimes you'd see somebody outside the temple and they're looking for that 10th guy because they don't have enough to put together. So once you became a man, having your bar mitzvah, you could be officially counted as to be in the group to make the minimum.
Do we have that picture? I think. Is that in there? Okay. I got the picture. I think. We'll get it up there.
Yeah. So what happens is when it's your bar mitzvah, they look at the Jewish calendar and say, okay, my birthday's like October 9th. They say, well, this year, your official Hebrew birthday is October 17th. That's the day you're going to do it. And based on that, we have this book we call the Haggadah, and you're going to have to read, actually going to have to sing all these, this particular part. No, okay, so I went for months and months, and I learned I'd be in the back room going, because I didn't know what I was singing, but it sounded good. I thought it sounded good. So anyway, the day comes, and you go into the synagogue, and in those days, just kind of like you had in Thailand, the women sat up above. They sat in the balcony, and the men sat down below, and everybody was dressed up. That's what you do.
There it is. Remember that picture?
So look at those ears. I mean, that's why I have long. That's why I have long hair. They used to say I look like a taxi cab with its doors open coming down the street. So, so, I get in front. They'd roll out, the big scroll, and they'd have this big pointer thing, and then I'd do my singing. And that was a big deal. So then when I finished that, I thought, okay, I want to start doing what Jews are supposed to do. They're supposed to pray every morning. You're supposed to, like, in the first thing in the morning, last thing at night, you're supposed to say the Shema. And I had the phylacteries, and I'd wrap them around my arm and on my head, and I do all these things. But I didn't have a mentor to keep me going on this thing. And my parents were cultural Jews. So cultural Jews, they celebrate like Passover and Rosh Hashanah, the Day of Atonement, when you can't eat. Well, by noon, I have to eat or I'll die. And other than that, they really didn't do anything. So there wasn't any talk about God in my life. There wasn't any biblical reading. My mother, for the purpose of the Hebrew school, did get me the 5 books of Moses, which to me, until I came to Compass, I thought there were only 5 books in the Bible. So it was like the 5 books of Moses. And they had like Hebrew on one side of the page and English on the other side. And the one thing I remember from really early on when I was reading through the Bible, I got to this part in Genesis and it said, and we shall make man in our image. I go, who's we? Who's we? I thought it was just one. What's like we? So right off the bat, I had some questions. But then after that, I kind of just fizzled away. In my second marriage, my mother-in-law, who was really strong Christian, she'd witness to me all the time. And every time she did, I go, you're telling me that Jesus is the only way? That's not fair. I mean, it's just not fair. Can't be. And she passed away, and I was still the, pagan person that I was. So I don't know, should I tell you how I got to the next step?
Yeah, keep going.
So it's about 15 years ago. I'm 80 now. I was 65 then. And I was like ironing a shirt. It was a Sunday. And as Jews do all the time, they complain. It's like when they were in the wilderness, Is this why we left? Is this what it's
not
about?
Limited to Jews, but yeah.
Yeah, we complain. We complain. We make jokes and we complain. And if you ask us a question, we ask it back. How are you doing? What's it up to you? I mean, Jesus did that, right? They'd ask Jesus a question, he answered with a question. So it's like, that's how I knew he was a Jew. So I'm ironing a shirt, and I'm complaining to God in my head. I thought you had a plan for me. I guess I was wrong. God didn't even wait 15 minutes. It was like, I turned on the TV, and I started going through this nothing, going up. I don't know if you ever noticed it or not, but the religious stations are the higher numbers. I figure that's just closer to God, right? That's what they... So I'm going up and up, and I get to this one station. I see this guy looks just... He's not one of these screaming people with the wife that's got hair sticking out and eyelashes. Nothing like that. This is just a guy, and it was Charles Stanley. And I caught, it was the last 10 minutes of Charles Stanley, and I'm listening, I'm thinking, wow, this guy is really neat. So the next week, I'm thinking, I got to find where this guy was. Wasn't paying attention, and I was able to find him. So I started to listen to him every week, and he was just so sincere, and, he always closed with like a call to Jesus, and I don't know that I was paying that much attention, but I guess it was starting to work inside of me. And so several weeks go by, and I'm watching him every Sunday, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I get up to go to the next room, and about halfway across, I stop. I hope I don't get choked up on this, and for some reason, all of a sudden, I could see like my worst sins in front of me. And I'm thinking, I think I need to accept Jesus. And then my other self is saying, no. You're a Jew. Jesus, nice guy, not the one. I mean, that's like standard operating procedure. And I'm like, no, I think I need Jesus. Like, if you do this, your family's going to turn their back on you. They might even consider you dead. I've been there in one of those deals where they call what's sitting shiver for a week, where everybody's like, just feeling badly because someone's died. And they actually do that for people that are rejected by the family. You're no longer considered you're dead to us. And they're actually sitting, and I'm thinking, they're going to do that. People are going to turn their back. No, but you got to do this. You got to do this. I'm like back and forth, and like tears are coming from my eyes. I'm like, what's happening here? I just don't get it. So I tell my wife, I said, now my wife came from a strong Christian family, but she was kind of like a cultural Christian. So we didn't go to church. There wasn't talk about God in the family or anything like that. And I said, I don't know what to do. I told her what happened, and she said, well, why don't you keep watching Stanley? Maybe he'll have some instruction for you. And he actually did. So like the next week I'm watching Stanley. He says, by the way, if you're a new Christian, you need to get a Bible. And I said, okay. And I have a Bible for you. It's got all the promises in it. So great. I ordered the Bible, going with you. And like, wow, there's more than 5 books in here, So along the line, he says, you need to get a church. So I said, okay, well, I wonder how I get a church. I didn't only get me a little spooked up to go into a church, but okay, so I go online and I start checking out the different churches. Fortunate in these days, you could listen to their sermons online. So I'd listen to different ones and I get 10 minutes, 15 minutes of it. I don't know very much, but these guys, they're not doing it for me. So I, kept going around, kept listening. Actually, I hooked up on Saddleback. Everybody's going to Saddleback, so I'll listen to what they. And there was this guy that they had that did like a daily devotional, Pastor Tom. And one day I'm listening. It's the 3rd week of listening to Pastor Tom. I'm thinking, oh, this is pretty good. And he goes, now the Bible says this, but that you don't have to do that. I go, you're fired. You're fired. What do you mean? The Bible tells you something, and you don't have to do that? That's like you're breaking the rules. I'm not having any of that. So I keep listening. I'm listening. I tune into, I think it was David Jeremiah down in San Diego. And wasn't great about his message, but he had this choir that was just incredible. Their worship was so much, I come to tears. So I was kind of like slowly getting the pieces together. Weeks go by, and I'm subscribing to all these different Christian sites. And one day I get something that says, listen to the pastor of the week. It's Mike Fabarez. And I'm thinking, I can't even say this guy's name, and I'm going to be listening to him? So, okay. So I start listening to him. I get into about 2 or 3 minutes, and I stop. Whoa. This guy's scaring me. This guy's scaring me. And not only does he want a commitment, but I think he's telling you what you're not all in. And I'm like, oh, this hurts. I listened to this sermon. I'm like, I've got to have more of this. Now, because Charles Stanley was in Atlanta, Georgia, and because I'd never heard of Aliso Viejo, where
were you living at the time? Were you here?
Oh, well, I was in Dana Point,
yeah.
And I was checking all the churches around. So it was Laguna Beach, Laguna Niguel, San Juan Capistrano. I never heard of Aliso Viejo. So it's like, so I'm thinking that Pastor Mike is in Atlanta, Georgia, So somehow I must have found Focal Point Ministries. I started downloading his sermons, and every day I would take a walk around the beach, and I'd listen to his sermon. Oh, no, I was just loving this. Oh, it's a shame this guy's back east. This is like, just... And about the 50th sermon, he says something about Costco in Orange County. I'm like, he's here. I can't believe it. He's here. So I go running home. I get on the internet, take a look, like, oh, he's in Aliso Viejo. Where's that? Oh, it's like 20 minutes from here. I got to go check it out. And this is a Monday. Monday, the place is closed. So I drive up here, I take a look, there's an industrial track. Is it a church? I don't know. There's no cross. I can't see anything. I go home, I tell my wife, Jan, and I go, I went there, and it's like this industrial place, and there's no cross. She says, it must be a cult. So it's like, so somehow, with all my online things, I connect up with Jay Wharton. He's not here, is he?
No, he's out this morning.
And by email, and I go, I'm thinking about going to this church, but I've never been to church, and I'm just trying to get more information. And he must have answered me. It must have been on a Tuesday, because he said, well, we have men's Bible study, and you should come tonight because we're doing a 2-year study on the book of Genesis, New Beginnings. Like, okay, that sounds pretty good to me. So he tells me how to get up here, although I knew, I've been here once to see the bookstore that wasn't open. And so I'm driving up, and I'm thinking, okay, they're going to find out I'm Jew. This is not good. Because they're going to, like, hang me or beat me up. So, and so I started arguing with myself. It's like, yeah, but Jesus was a Jew, Yeah, but the Jews killed him. Yeah, but he was supposed to die. I'm going back and forth. And by this time, sweat's pouring off my hand. I'm like, I get out of my truck, and I walk up, and Jay Wharton meets me at the door, and he says, do you have a Bible? I go, no, I don't have a Bible. He says, here's a Bible, and you can keep this. I said, I'll buy one. Don't worry about it. So I go, okay, what do we do? We're meeting in this is the Compass Room. And I think that night, Rick Talcott was delivering this. They did worship, and then they had a talk. And so he goes, okay, open up to 1 Corinthians. And I'm like, 1 Corinthians? I got to look in the table of contents, which, by the way, I tell the kids at school, table of contents is only for wimps. You need to know how to get around. But, when you're a Jew with only 5 books, you needed the table of contents to get those other 61 books, So it's like, okay, 1 Corinthians, okay, here it is. And he goes, now go to Deuteronomy. I go, I just got here to 1 Corinthians. Okay. So I don't know. I don't think that I ever made it. By the time I got to where he was going, it was like, okay, we're praying, we're closing. I thought, okay, that was good. I didn't learn anything, but I learned that I don't know the Bible. So then he assigned me to our groups. And so I was assigned to a group. It was Sam Camerano. I think he's there somewhere today. And I'm really getting nervous because now I'm going to meet the guys that are going to hang me, right? So this is everybody introduces themselves. And as they're going around, I could see that these are loving, caring people. And I'm not feeling threatened. I'm feeling like I found home. And so that's how that started.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing that God would keep putting those seeds in your life, even going back to your mother-in-law at the time of, talking about Christianity and preaching the gospel to you, and that never left you, right? You had that hunger and that desire to keep seeking truth and what was out there, and to have God lead you here. So grateful that he did. And now, again, as you mentioned, the kids ministry. And so we'll fast forward to that because I want to spend some time on that. But I guess just started off by at what point did you say, okay, this is what my calling is. This is where God wants me. Because again, you were in multiple different ministries, and then the kids ministry was always there. But then now you're teaching, you're teaching classes at schools for kids. And did you always like kids? Let me just ask you that at first. Did you have an affinity?
Okay, so here's the deal with kids. I never liked kids.
That's fair.
I used to tell kids, even my grandkids, you're 6. When you're 15, come back, we'll have a great conversation. Because I just didn't have any patience toward kids or anything. So it's but throughout my life, the weird thing too was people would tell me, you ought to teach. You're a good teacher. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Where are you getting that from? So there'd be these little hints about that. And then in the kids' ministry, that was just something that I thought here's something I should do. It's kind of like God was pushing me that way. But even when I first went to the classes, I didn't have this love for the kids. It was just like, okay, this is something I'm volunteering for. And it was just slow over time, over the years of teaching. It was actually kind of interesting because before the pandemic, I was dressed in a suit. And when I'd be teaching, I really started teaching the 4th grade. I would notice that after several weeks, some of the boys would come wearing a jacket, some of the girls would come wearing a nicer dress. And it was like, oh, this is kind of cool. It's like, I guess they're paying attention to me. And then I'd start to get to know them. And then I get to see how they looked at the world differently than adults. They also were quick to tell me, Mr. Rubin, you pronounced that incorrectly, or you said this. They were just so honest. You know, like, Mr. Rubin, I found a $10 Bible buck on the floor. They didn't like try to keep it or anything. And so I started to learn a lot from the kids. And somehow, over time, I started to get a love for these kids. And a matter of fact, this I really remember. I was asked to do a chapel one time. We used to do those fairly often in the kids' ministry. I don't think they do that right now. But so I went up in front of the kids, had my suit on, and actually had what you saw in that picture, my tallis. You know, that's a shawl. It's called a tallis. From my bar mitzvah, same original one, and had my little beanie cap on, my yarmulke. And I was talking to the kids, telling them about how I became a Christian, how I gave my life to Christ. And at the end, I opened it up for Q&A. And one of the kids asked me, are your kids saved? And I said to them, I was a terrible father. I did not have God in our family. I did not teach my kids about God. I didn't even know about God. I spoke to God all the time in my head, but I really didn't know God, and I didn't have his word or anything. I said, but God, being the loving, merciful God that he is, gave me all of you. And so I am blessed, and I'm beyond blessed because, you know, here I have, let's say, an average of 25, 30 kids every Sunday. 3rd grade. They demoted me from 4th grade. I wasn't smart enough. I've got 30 kids at PC Prep that I teach 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th grade. And Awana, every couple of weeks I'm teaching it at Awana, and that's 3rd through 6th. I've got a lot of kids that I love, and I know many love me. And so when people come to me and say, we're so blessed to have you as a teacher, I go, no. God has blessed me to be able to teach these kids in these crazy times God's word and to know God and to love God. And of course, they're being taught that from their families at home. Maybe not all of them, but many of them. And so what's happened is after all this time now, the bonds between myself and all these kids here, and some of them are now going to high school. This is scary how long I've been doing this. There's a loving connection I could not describe. So God has really blessed me.
Yeah. And I've had, you know, my kids in your class too. Got another one coming in there this next semester. And yeah, I can affirm the fact that they absolutely love, you know, what you're teaching them and the way you relate to them. Sometimes I'll tell them something, they're like, well, Mr. Rubin said. I'm like, okay. So it's a wonderful thing. But talk to us a little bit about how your desire to, if you will, increase your load has heightened as you've gotten older, right? Because even now, you're talking about, you picked up a class at PC Prep, you're teaching here, you're talking about a book, right, that to continue to do things. Why is it increasing where most people would say, hey, as I'm getting older in my 80s, let me just kind of, you know, land the plane here and relax?
Well, first of all, I got to tell you, it's all God. God keeps pushing me in different directions. And a matter of fact, I walk every Monday morning with Bill Wall, and I told him about a month or so again, I got a feeling God's got something going in my life. I can feel little bubbling going on. And then a couple of weeks later, you text me that you'd like to interview with me, which was like, they're really at the bottom of the barrel if they're coming down here, you know. And then I'm thinking, well, gee, maybe this is going to be leading to something else. God puts these things in my life that are just, I've gotten to the point now where it's just like, he's running the show, I know it, and if I run across a trouble spot, it's like, God's got this, I just trust him in that. So about 4 years ago, I was doing this daily walk. I'd walk every morning at 9 o'clock, walk around the beach and the golf course. It'd be about an hour walk, and one Friday, I don't know, I was busy in the morning, and I didn't like to walk in the afternoon, but I said to my wife, Janet, I said, you know, for some reason I got this urge to walk. I'm going to go ahead and take a walk. It was about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'm walking, I'm coming up the backside of the Ritz-Carlton, and here sitting on this bench is Emma Pence. And I said, well, hi, what are you doing here? She says, well, actually, I never sit here, but the place that I was sitting at was so hot, I found this place was a little shady. And she was sitting with her sister, Camille, and she said, I think that's her name. And she said, we're just going over the play that we're laying out for Camp Compass. And we were thinking, we'd sure like to have someone like J. Rubin doing this part. And I'm like, well, I'm too busy. I can't do that, but good luck, you know. And I start walking away. And I'm like halfway around the walk, and I go, idiot, God's calling you. You need to do this. So I sent an email to Janie, because I didn't have Emma's email, and I said, I'd like to do that. She said, great. This is it. So for the last 3 or coming on 4 years now, I've been doing this play. And, you know, a different play they have each year. I think last year I was Samuel, the prophet Samuel. I got to anoint David. Pretty good. Pretty good.
Put that on a resume.
I like that. It's a Jewish thing. I just like, you know. So anyway, so this year, because I just turned 80, I'm playing Moses. Now, I don't know that I got 40 years left, but I got to tell you, for the rest of my life, as far as I'm concerned, you know, I'm following God's instructions, and I'm praying that God's instructions are for me to continue to be teaching these kids the Word of God, because it's what I love to do.
Yeah. And we always need, especially in this day and age, more people pouring into our younger generation. So you mentioned your age already, so I don't have to say it. But being 80, right? How would you encourage someone? Because I know most people in here closer to your age can look at it and say, that's not for me. I don't have enough energy. I'm not relatable. What am I going to do with kids? How would you encourage somebody in here that may be leaning in because they're like, well, Jay Rubin can do it. Maybe God is calling me to do it. What would you say to encourage them to say you should get involved in our kids' ministry? You should get involved in this youth, this next generation, because they could use the wisdom that God has given you.
Well, the one thing that's really helped me, and maybe this isn't for everybody. Actually, I didn't think it would be for me originally, because I used to hear about these guys getting up 3 o'clock in the morning and praying for hours. And but several years ago, I actually started getting up about 5 in the morning to spend what was initially about a half an hour with God, which now is an hour and a half with God. And it's reading, it's praying, it's talking to God, it's listening. Something happens to me early in the morning where I get all these, I don't know, either suggestions or pushes, or maybe you ought to be thinking about this, maybe you ought to be checking this out. And I think, I don't know that I have any great words of wisdom, other than I can just tell you that I believe that if you open yourself up truly to God, to trust God, but not just for one day, not just for 10 days, it's got to be every day, And at what point does God say, okay, I'm going to start using you and doing this? That's God's timing. So I've got nothing to do with that. But I think if you're open to that, if you're truly open to that, if you truly say that you're here for God to use you, for God to give you a gift, whatever it is, doesn't have to be kids ministry, it could be some, God will tell you what that is. It'll become obvious to you, and you'll want to do that. That's the only thing I could suggest is, but I have to tell you, I think about God all the time. I'm praying throughout the day. I'm praying for different people on my prayer list. When I talk to people now, I always bring up God. It's just, there's two things in my life, God and my wife. And of course the kids. So I guess that's three things. But there's, when people say, well, what do you want? Other than that, don't you want to like go on night? I've done nice things. That's all just past. You do something and it's gone. But when you're with God, that's forever. That's just keeps going, and that's that living water going through you. It's just refreshing all the time. I don't know. It just...
Yeah, well, what I can see is consistent in your life, and to the point that you just made, is just being willing to say yes. Like not having your plans and sort of tight-fisting your plans to say, this is what I want to do, God, this is how I'll be used for you, but just saying, all right, whatever you put in front of me, I'm going to say yes to, and I'll let you figure it out, because it really is his plan. And oftentimes, many of you can look in your life and say, all right, because I've said yes and been faithful to do what God's called me to do, you look at where you are now and how he's using you in ministry, and you say, I don't know how I got here. Like, what? This wasn't my plan. This is not my, I didn't even think this was my giftedness. I think about you is like, you were fantastic with men. It's like you, and you still are, but it's like you're even better with kids. And, that's not typically what somebody would write in a seminary book. Is like, hey, go find an 80-year-old and put them with third graders, and that'd be right. But that's how God works. You're not going to write about him. You're not going to write about his plan, and he's going to show you when you're willing to say yes, and then he uses us in great ways. So I think your willingness is a testament to, just being quiet, seeing what God is laying out in front of you, and just being willing to do it. And don't worry about it. It's like, well, I can't. He will. Right?
Well, I keep thinking back to that first time when I said to God, I thought you had a plan. I guess I was wrong. I could picture God going, you have no idea. No idea. And matter of fact, if I told you, you'd go, no way. Right? With kids? No, not going to happen. So that's what you got to be open to. It's like, whatever your plan is, I might think, okay, this doesn't make any sense, but God knows.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, you mentioned that young lady that's in this picture too. Tell us a little bit about her, because we don't get to see her as much. But tell us about Janet.
Well, Janet, I always make fun of her being the original cougar because I'm 80 and Janet's 93, going on 94, and she looks great. I got to tell you, but she's the one I take care of. So I've learned how to cook, clean the house, go shopping, all those things. I tell you, by the time I finish learning all those things, I go, that's what you women have been doing all along. I just thought you were kind of goofing off, It's absolutely incredible. She has a love for the Lord, but in so much of a different way, because even though she looks like, oh, yeah, I'm out there and I'm a strong lady and whatnot, she's a very inward person. She doesn't like to be out in the public a lot. Usually on Sunday mornings, before I come to Compass, I sit with her and we watch a service together. She actually she likes to watch Jack Hibbs. And so I'll sit with her through that. And then he has some good messages, not always ones that I agree with, but the fact that she loves the hymns. One thing she didn't like about most of the churches she's been to is she says, where are the hymnals? we're in the hymnals. I want to sing a hymn. I don't like this. This sounds like rock and roll music to me. So, but it's amazing. I'll say something and she'll be singing a worship song with those words. And she can play the piano also. So sometimes we've got some worship books up on the piano and she'll start playing and we'll sing together. So it's just she's been a great balance for me. God's plan is absolutely incredible. And let me just tell you one other thing. And this kind of a little bit off the topic, but it shows how God's worked in my life. When I first left my first family, I swore to myself that I would never get married again. Man plans, God laughs. And Janet and I would never have met because we traveled in two different circles, but somebody that knew me from my old life got a temporary job working at the university where Janet was working at for 2 days, and she said, how would you like to go on a blind date? I think I got a guy you might be interested in. And then this gal called me and said, would you like to go on a blind date? And I thought, well, I've never been on one, okay. And we went on what we called a 10-minute date. It was just to check to see if we had two eyes and nose, that. And we met, and I looked at her, and I said, I think you're going to be somebody really important in my life. And she said to me, I've heard every line but that one. So that turned out to be, that was a God thing. God put us together. God has totally controlled my life in so many ways. It's like, whatever you have for me next, that's my assignment.
That's awesome. Let me ask you this one last question, and then we'll get to the prayer requests that you have for us. But obviously, Jewish background. If you were talking to, and I know you've had this conversation with some Jews before, but tell us, what would you say to a person that was you, call it yourself, at the age of 40, age of 50? How would you have the conversation with yourself at that age, knowing this is all you know, this is what your family knows, they're fearful of even renouncing the faith, knowing what they will get criticized for and how they'll get treated? What would you say to yourself at 40 years old if you were speaking to yourself?
This is a tough one, because to me, the way God called me was proof that God calls you. God draws you to Jesus. You just don't decide, okay, I'm going to bring Jesus in my life. No, God's going to call, right? John 6:44. No one comes to me unless the Father who sent me draws them. But I will say this. Somebody once called me and said, I have a friend who's Jewish, and could I have you speak to them? Do you know, can you witness to a Jew? And at first I said, yeah, sure, because I always volunteer. Sure, oh yeah. I hang up and I go, I don't know how to do that. I don't know, what did I say that? So I went online to look at things, and John MacArthur has this great series on how to witness to a Jew. And the way that works, the way that John MacArthur says, is you read to them, or have them read, or you memorize and recite to them the suffering servant. And they're going to go, well, yeah, I'm not going for that, because that's in the New Testament. I don't believe the New Testament. And that's when because most Jews, I hate to say, probably like most Christians, haven't read the Bible, and they don't know it. It's like, well, that's not from the New Testament. That's the Old Testament. It's Isaiah 53, the suffering servant, which, by the way, at one of the classes that I teach at PC Prep, there's a challenge there for the kids. If they can memorize the suffering servant, I grade them on, you can get a certain score if you do it perfect. I mean, like every word. I said, because this will change your life, and you'll hear it in different sermons, and it'll get into your head every once in a while. So I think sometimes if you get to that point with a Jew, I have to tell you right now, after all this time, I've never gotten to that point with a Jew. Because we are stiff-necked people. Right. Complaining. I don't want to hear that. I know the answer. I did the same thing. But that would be one thing. That would be one. And actually, I heard somebody say that on YouTube yesterday, a matter of fact. He said, this is how I would do it. And so that was John MacArthur's way.
Yeah. So. That's a great way. Again, it's really helping anyone, not just said Jews, but anyone understand that the Bible is one unified story, right? It's all written by the Holy Spirit. It all points to Christ, right? And so whether you're on this side of the cross, whether you're focused on the Old Testament, it's all pointing to this Redeemer that God has talked about since Genesis 3, right? That He's going to send and redeem His people. And that's going to be His plan. So. I specified Jews, but it's for anyone. Read the Bible, understand the Bible, and it tells you everything that we need to know about life and godliness, right? Good. Well, yeah, if you hadn't got a chance to meet Jay Rubin, I pray that even just when you meet him on the patio, he has a lot more just with what God is doing in his life, and we only have a limited amount of time here. But again, my point in sharing and wanting you to meet him, if you don't know him already, is God works in amazing ways when we have a willing heart, right? He's going to find a willing heart. So it's not like God's plan is getting thwarted because there's not enough people saying yes to the things that He wants to. He's going to find a willing heart. That willing heart can be you, right? Maybe God's pushing you to do something right now that you're saying, I can't. Well, I'm not gifted enough, or that's not my strong suit or anything like that. You start saying yes to what God is placing in front of you. He'll start to work things out in your life that you never would have even imagined. And you'll be used in those ways as Jay has been used at Compass since the time that he's been here. And I'm so grateful that he brought you here, because he could have put you at other churches, but we've been blessed by you. I've been blessed by you personally, your friendship and how God is continuing to use you. So thank you, man. I appreciate that. Before we conclude, let me I ask Jay to put some prayer requests together so we can continue to pray for you even beyond this. But Jay, let me have you just quickly, you can just read them, or if there's more on that you'd like to speak to, then feel free.
So the three prayer requests that I have, the first one relates to my wife, that I pray that God would keep me healthy long enough to take care of my wife for the rest of her life. After she goes, and I know there's some men in here that feel the same way about their wife. After she goes, then you can take me. The second thing was that He would keep me close and excited to teaching these kids for as long as possible. And thirdly, I started this project last year, restarting it again this year. I'm creating a video series for YouTube called Mr. Rubin's Bible Study. and I just pray that God leads me to do it in a way that there would be some people, some kids specifically, that would see this thing and that would be drawn to God and drawn to His Word. And if it's just one kid, that's okay too. And Bill Wald said, well, how are you going to market this? I go, I'm not marketing it. This is a God thing. It's like Jesus. He had 12 followers. That worked. That's all I need.
Praise God. Well, let's give Jay Rubin a round of applause. Thank you we appreciate you spending some time with us this morning, because who's teaching the kids this morning? Are they just...
I teach at 11 o'clock.
Oh, 11. Okay, I thought you just...
It's the last day for this year.
So that's a sad thing, too.
Cookies sitting I cry a lot on the last day.
All right, it's a sad thing. A lot of these teachers are sad. They've had them for a whole year. So say some encouraging words to them if you see them out there. But let me pray, and then we'll conclude. God, we are so grateful for just this reminder of how you use people, humans, as your agents, as your instruments to roll out your plan of building up your church, strengthening your church, equipping your church for the work of ministry. Lord, we are so grateful just to be reminded that it's not us, that it's all you. Lord, even the fact that you've called us to a point of salvation, we wouldn't even thought of you if it weren't for your grace and your mercy and you drawing us to you. Lord, we wouldn't even be used by you. Many that have serving posts in here, many that have identified the giftings that you have blessed them with, Lord, none of that would be seen by our own sight if it weren't for your grace. So I thank you for that. Thank you for Jay and how you are using him. Lord, give him a sharpness of mind, give him wisdom, give him understanding of your word, give him just a desire to continue to run hard until the race is done, all the way to the finish line. Lord, being used by you in the life of this next generation. We are so needed to have more Christians pour into older Christians, pour into these younger Christians' lives and young kids, so that they can be prepared for the onslaught that the world has in store for our next generation. So I thank you for people like him and many in this room that are serving in Awana and different other areas throughout the church. And Lord, I do pray that you would just give him strength and energy. Bless him as he serves his wife, Janet. Lord, give her strength and health, and just pray that you would give him good health to be able to provide for her, provide the care that she needs, in addition to the ministry that you're allowing him to do. So give him success with this video series that he's doing. If that be your will, Lord, I pray that that would go out to many, to thousands, and that kids would be able to point to that and say they came to a saving knowledge of you because of Mr. Rubin's teaching on the Word of God and focusing on that and being just centered on that and that alone. So we thank you for this time together. I pray that it was encouraging to many, and I pray that you would just continue to do a great work in the lives of all of us as we strive to say yes to the things that you place in front of us, and knowing that you will figure out all the details and you'll continue to work out your plan in ways that we will never be able to imagine in our own minds. So we thank you and love you in Jesus' name. Amen.